For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Good morning from the Low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast, and we've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in a few minutes by Justin Perri. He does great work over at Chalk While He Bets along with Pitcher List. We're going to be chatting with him about how he's been taking a look at the first few weeks of the baseball season, why too many people get too far drawn in, for lack of a better term, in terms of some of these small sample sizes as well. And then we are also going to be chatting with him about anything that he might be liking for Tuesday, some of the betting angles that he loves as well. And then in the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we touch them all. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we offer this in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at GUNet_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, but everything is brought to you by EdgeBoost. Over at EdgeBoost.bet, utilize the promo code of Greg, your first $25 deposit. That is going to be matched dollar for dollar, and they help make sure that bettors are able to access their funds 24/7, 365, because unlike some places that they run on credit or something like that, this is just a basic bank account to make sure that you're able to get those funds and everything's approved 100% of the time. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Monday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The San Francisco Giants have been one of your top over teams in all of baseball, 14 overs, 8 unders, and a push, and this is one of the unders for them, 5-2. They're able to take it to the Milwaukee Brewers. For the Brewers, the main form of offense for them, Caleb Durbin. He was able to get his first home run of the campaign. That comes off of Robbie Ray, who not Robbie Boo, not necessarily a hooray in this game, but I mean, he goes 5 innings, gives up 2 runs, nothing great, nothing terrible. Hayden Birdsong from there, 3 rock-solid scoreless innings before Camilo Duvall comes in for a scoreless inning, gets a save, and Wilmer Flores goes deep off of Grant Anderson, 7th home run season for Quinn Priester. Just didn't give a lot of length in this one, 2 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings, and then Anderson gives up that solo home run in his inning of work. Nick Mears, he was able to pitch a scoreless inning, but had Jared Koenig in 2/3 of an inning allow a run. You'll Pyamson out of the bullpen scoreless, and then you had a inning with a run given up by Craig Yoho, and for the Brewers, now 12-11 for the season, so they're still above 500. The Chicago White Sox, well, they're still below 500, 4-2. The Boston Red Sox able to get the job done here, and for the White Sox, they've got 5 wins this season, and 3 have come against the Red Sox, which I find to be hilarious. The former Red Sox, Andrew Benintendi, does go deep off a roll to Chapman. 4th home run season. Chapman gives up that run in his inning of work, but Walker Buehler, very good stuff here. 9 punch-outs, 1 run allowed over the course of 7 innings. As we know, Boston Marathon went down on Monday, so big day out there in Boston. Justin Slayton, he's able to go for a scoreless inning, and Rob Refsnyder, he goes deep and he launches a cannon off of Jonathan Cannon. His first home run of the campaign for Cannon. He gives up 4 runs over the course of 6 innings, including that bomb. Tyler Gilbert along with Penn Murphy, they're both able to end a scoreless inning. The New York Yankees have been a solid over team themselves thus far this season. 12 overs, 9 unders, and 2 pushes, and it was overwhelming as Clark Schmidt gets lit up 6-4. The Guardians take down the New York Yankees as Schmidt gives up a pair of home runs, 5 runs in total. As going deep off of him, you had Kyle Manzardo get his 7th home run of the campaign, and then you had Stephen Kwan get his 5th as Schmidt fills 4 innings in total. Not bad year from Yandris Gomez, giving up 1 run over the course of 3 innings. Ryan Yarbrough scoreless inning, and a pair of home runs for the Yankees as well as Gavin Williams gives one up to Yasan Dominguez, his 2nd home run of the campaign, and then Paul Sewald has been shaky to say the least. He gives one up to Jazz Chisholm, his 7th home run of the campaign, as it was actually Cade Smith who came in for the save. Squirrel setting out of him, Joey Cantillo out of the bullpen. Paul Sewald gives up 2 runs over the course of 1 1/3 innings, but For Williams, though, he gave up a home run in this one. 2 runs allowed in 6 1/3 innings to be able to get Cleveland to the window there. Being able to get to the window as well, the Houston Astros, 7-0. They're able to shut out the Toronto Blue Jays. As for the Astros, a little bit of an explosion here as they go 5 of 11 with men in scoring position, and Hunter Brown was great. 9 punch-outs, 7 scoreless innings, allowed just 2 hits. Forrest Woodley, 2 scoreless innings from there. And for Toronto, not what they were hoping for from Kevin Gausman. 4 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings, and then he had 3 runs given up in 2 innings by Josh Walker. For the Astros, who have been very rock solid to the under this far this season, to be able to get that to the window. 12 unders, 8 overs, and 2 pushes. Your top under team, by the way, is the Texas Rangers, but your next best under team at 8 overs and 15 unders, that'd be the Mets, but they did play an overwhelming game on Monday, 5-4. They were able to take to the Philadelphia Phillies as Aaron Nola, 0-5 on the season, 4 runs allowed in 6 1/3 innings, and he gave up a pair of bombs as Francisco Lindor gets his 4th home run of the season. Jesse Winker, his first, very nearly gave one up to Juan Soto as well, and then Lindor was not done. He also goes deep off of Jose Ruiz. That was home run number 5 of the campaign for Ruiz. Gives up that sole home run in 2/3 of an inning of work. Tanner Banks, a scoreless inning of his own. And for the Mets, things did get a little bit shaky towards the end. Max Kranick did give up 3 runs over the course of 2 innings, and Edwin Diaz, he did allow a sole home run in his inning of work going deep for the Philadelphia Phillies. Bryson Stott, 2nd home run of the campaign, but Tyler McGill was great. 10 punch-outs along with 5 1/3 innings scoreless, and Reed Garrett, pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless for the Atlanta Braves. They stormed back against the St. Louis Cardinals. They put up a 5 spot in the 8th inning to be able to get a 7-6 win, and for the Cardinals, Eric Fedde Wap, pretty solid in this one. He gives up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings. Kyle Leahy, scoreless inning, and then Phil Matone lets go of the rope. 4 runs allowed in 1/3 of an inning, and you had Jojo Romero come in for 2/3 of an inning. He inherited quite a few runners, and then you had a big home run in this one as it was home run number 5 of the campaign for Sean Murphy earlier in the game. Austin Riley off of Mr. Fedde, 6th home run of the campaign, and Spencer Schwellenbach, 3 runs, 2 of which were earned, given up in his 7 innings of work. We'll say Rossi Iglesias, not solid in this one. Gives up 3 runs over the course of an inning in the 9th inning as he was taken deep by Wilson Contreras, 2nd home run of the campaign, but you'd had Dadspell Hernandez give you a scoreless inning, and the Atlanta Braves, they find a way to persevere. They do get the job done. Also getting the job done was the Detroit Tigres, 6-4. They take down the San Diego Padres. For Randy Vasquez, just did not have it in this one. 6 runs allowed in 2 innings. Bullpen from there was actually great. Yuki Matsui, 2 scoreless innings. We had Wandy Peralta, Logan Gillespie combined for 4 scoreless innings, and we had Gavin Sheets go deep off of Kideo Montero. His 3rd home run on the campaign for Montero gives up 4 runs, 3 of which were earned in his 4 1/3 innings, but the Tigers bullpen was also great. Brendan Ennefe, 2 scoreless innings. Brian Herter, 1 2/3 innings scoreless, and Will Vest able to provide a scoreless inning to be able to get the job done out there. And if you're looking at the Miami Marlins, they have been a very good over team to you this far this season, and for the Miami Marlins, they've just been a really good home over team in general. Last year, they were 70% to the over at home. This year, 10 overs and 4 unders at home thus far this season, so an even more torrid pace this far. 6-3, they take down the Cincinnati Reds as Nick Lodolo gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 2/3 innings, including a home run as Eric Wagaman gets his 3rd home run of the campaign, and then Kyle Stowers off of Alexis Diaz, he gets his 2nd home run of the campaign. Diaz gives up 3 runs in 1 1/3 innings. Emilio Pagano scoreless inning, and for the Reds, after they put up 24 on Sunday, not so much doing on this day. Gavin Lux gets his 1st home run on the campaign, and that was it as a team who had only 1 hit with men in scoring position as Max Meyer, 14 strikeouts in 6 scoreless innings. You did have Tyler Phillips give up that home run, 3 runs in total in his inning of work, but Ronnie Enriquez, Jesus Chinoco, they were able to give you a scoreless inning. And if you're looking trend-wise at what we're getting in Major League Baseball right now, has been a little bit of an underwhelming season. 160 unders to 155 overs, so 50.8% hit rate to the under. What's really been hitting have been the favorites. 207 and 127 on the money line, so hitting at 62% overall for the season, and over the last 7 days, favorites are hitting at 65.9%, 60 and 31 on the money line with the under, hitting at about 52.3% over the last 7 days, 45 unders to 41 overs. So that's where we're seeing baseball right now, and that's where we're all getting trend-wise in this great sport. Coming up next, how about if we talk with our good friend Justin Perri? He does such great work over at Pitcher List, along with Shot Quality Bets, right here on the Baseball Betting Show. Myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Justin Perri aboard. He does a tremendous job over at Chalk Value Bets, Action Network, Pitcher List, you name it, he does it. He's helping out Seth Davis over on his website as well. So this man wears about 37 different hats, but he's much like Mike Trout. He is a five-tool player when it comes to gathering and being able to analyze a little bit of everything in terms of college basketball, baseball, and so much more. You're able to follow him on Twitter /X at Justin Perri, his first and last name. That last name is spelled Perri, and then the number 8 all together. And Justin, great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Greg, always a pleasure to join the show, talk a little bit of baseball. Doesn't really matter the season, doesn't matter the sport. As you said, 37 jerseys, 5 hit tool, 5 tool. Speaking might not be one of them tonight. We'll see how it goes, but it's always fun to jump on, share some analysis, and honestly just talk about the game because it's always changing, and always appreciate your commitment and effort that you put into, seeing those changes through with the most hours applied out of any of us.
Yep, absolutely. It's always great to be able to get you aboard because you do the same thing that I do. You do a lot of college basketball during the season, but once the college basketball season ends, you start up on baseball. And just where do you get started with regards to making that transition? Because I feel like it's one of the most difficult things for anyone, myself included. And I always think that it's very interesting just the process in going from one sport to the other, because you're much like myself, you want to be placing bets all 12 months out of the year, and by having both college basketball and baseball as 2 of your main sports, that allows you to be able to do so.
Yep. I mean, it's not easy. I will say that the transition from college basketball into baseball is a lot more difficult just because I prioritize college basketball, which usually just means me as a human being has a little bit of a tougher time with it. In terms of the math, baseball is pretty interesting. You want to be able to evaluate how good everybody is at, I guess, improving or breaking their slumps, I guess, is the biggest thing, and trying to figure out where value is and who you can trust and how consistent a hot hitter is going to be and what can you find in their past data to solidify if someone's going to keep up a good streak, and then, obviously building that data out and what you can predict on a per at-bat basis from each team in a lineup, and then building that out into game projections. So it's not easy. I will say my one word is patience. I've been pretty slow, actually. Baseball, I don't have that many units down on the season yet, but it's because we're right at that point. I feel like late April is where I start sort of taking those training wheels off, akin to not jumping in gung-ho too hard the first week in college basketball. I do have my spots, and I'll pick my spots, and I love certain pitchers that maybe the market isn't super convinced on that I am, or maybe the opposite of guys that everyone's kind of hot on that I'm like, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't jump to that pricing on this guy just because of a few starts. That's the type of stuff I'll do early in the season. But then, honestly, we start getting a good enough sample size in this year's data, and I start using it and playing a lot more come this final week of April, start of May. And then, it gets pretty intense in terms of using the comparison between this year's data, last year's data, and trying to understand the process in which lines are set and how I can, I guess, arrive at the conclusions of who's going to actually be good faster than anybody else is really the game I play by using the advanced data, and then just trusting them and figuring out ways to get down on them in advantageous spots, I guess, that are more secure than others. I play a lot of first fives when I like a starter. I play full games when I actually feel like I have a grip on who's available and how bullpens have been used in a series, and that takes a different level of application. Not much, but it's a different beast to try to model a full game than it is a first five, and I think it's just a whole another level of uncertainty that you don't need. And so in terms of how I do it, I do a lot of atmospheric stuff. I try to figure out hit conditions in terms of how it impacts spin rates and certain pitchers' breaks and styles, in terms of if we're talking about guys who use traditional, rotational dynamics versus, maybe a reverse type motion who's going to have a little bit of a different break on the four seam than the traditional guys. So How does that change when you have guys expecting certain motion? And the game's so crazy now. And I'm trying to figure out how to bring in some of this swing profile and like foot placement stuff that we have now with baseball. I have like a whole new model I feel like I need to build for MLB that I don't have the time to do, but one day I'll get to it.
Well, you do a lot in terms of being able to take a look at so many different fronts, and it has led to a lot of success for you over the years, as Justin Perri does such great work over at Chocolate Bets, Pitcher List, and so much more is joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And just through the first few weeks of the season, what have been some of the takeaways from both what you've noticed in baseball and some of the bets that you've placed? Because you did mention it. You have a nice mix of taking a look at some first fives, taking a look at some full games, and I feel like it's just been a very hot and cold sort of start to the season. We haven't necessarily seen a whole bunch of trends that have built, other than favorites have been absolutely dominating this far this season on the money line in baseball, and I think that makes it for such a very intriguing start to the season, because I feel like a lot of this has been very situational thus far.
Yeah, I think you're right. There has been a lot of situational play, and I think that, you don't want to jump to any conclusions without normalizing for schedule right now. We've seen this is fifth, sixth, seventh series now.
Right around there.
Yeah, it's just not enough. What do I mean by that? It means that you could easily run into 4 or 5 weaker opponents, or just catch a little hot streak or catch a bad run for an opponent, and all of a sudden your metrics look great. I mean, you're going to go by run differential. We saw the Reds put up a 20 run differential in a game. Like, what's that mean for a Pythagorean record? I'm not looking at that type of stuff. I don't want that to impact too much. I want to make sure that I'm normalizing that out of my data. I'm understanding that, this guy's super hot. Well, who has he actually faced? Like, you can't just go by a batting average and have that tell the whole story on who a guy is on April 22nd. It just doesn't really work that way. We know that now. Even like an expected WOBA at this point is not exactly the full story. And I think you do want another couple of weeks, another 5, 6, 8 games at this point before you really start trusting expected numbers to be predictive of this season, using this season alone. I think you can be very predictive using last season's data alongside this season's data, but I don't love to do that. I think there was a lot of roster fluidity in the last season, which is a really fun part of baseball. But, I really want to see how these new lineups are doing and how players do surrounded by their new teammates. And I mean, a lot of the heavy hitting lineups in baseball look a little different, except, maybe the Dodgers look very similar. The Brewers look pretty similar. Yankees, Phillies. Mets, Phillies look similar, right? Yankees and Mets changed a lot. Blue Jays look pretty similar. But again, maybe they're playing different because Bo Bichette looks healthy. So how do you gauge that? How do you compare that to last season's data? How do you bring in factors that evaluate the reasons behind the stories the data tells, right? Are you going to really trust the year and a half prior on Bo Bichette if he's looking like the player he was in 2022? No, you're going to hopefully have a method to say, okay, this is now that Bo Bichette has returned, and let's start projecting him a little bit higher. And theoretically, if you have the conviction to get into that and you can prove that he's really playing that well, you could have an edge on the player. And maybe you're taking his total bases, maybe you're taking his home run. I don't know. Maybe you find it somewhere in his singles. Who knows what it is? But that type of stuff's out there right now in terms of figuring out where the advantaged players are, and especially deeper in the rosters, some of those 6-7 hitters who are doing a little bit more. You're not going to beat the market too much on a 3-4 hitter. Maybe you really like Connor Norby of the Marlins, the recent call-ups. Augustin Ramirez today, 2 hits and a stolen base. There's a lot that you can find in the weeds, and I always think you want to play in the weeds and not really in the streets, because that's where everyone looks. That's where the cars are.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that it's so interesting to just be able to take a look at some of these guys that we should expect some positivity and some negativity for as well, because a lot of people are going to make a lot out of these early starts of the season. And I want to know how you try to be able to parse through the data right now, because I do think that there are some things that are tried and true. Like, for example, the Texas Rangers, I do believe that they're very much improved with regards to their pitching this year rather than what they have been in past years. And I'm fully convinced that the Chicago White Sox are back to being the Chicago White Sox of 2024. I don't think I'm stepping out too much onto a limb there, but that said, I think that it is very interesting to look at some of these teams that have gotten off to hot and cold starts of the season and trying to parse through, all right, what is for real and what is for not, because I think that we both agree it's one of the hardest things to do in all of baseball and handicapping, but if you're able to do it correctly, it's going to be very profitable.
Yeah, I mean, look, White Sox look, I think, as bad as we thought. Being able to understand that and judge that properly is the name of the game. Now, they're going to win games. Baseball, like basketball, sometimes you're just, I was reading some fantasy stuff over at Pitcher List where I also sometimes contribute. I haven't really been contributing a lot yet this season. I'll get around to it. Do a lot of great stuff, and I'm a reader of the site first because it's just that good. And one of the analysts was saying is just even at the major league level, in a span of 50 at-bats, any major league player can look absolutely terrible. And most players right now have about 50 to 60, 70 at-bats maybe. So we are just in that first chunk. It's 10% of the season. It's not that much. And it's also the first 10% of the season. So there's a lot being worked out. There's, not a lot of consistency. Some guys miss spring training. Guys returning from injury now who are maybe on the mend. So we're seeing some returns, a few here and there. I would know because every single person I talk to says their fantasy team is banged up. It's a tough sport. And I think, the real advantage lies in the adaptability. And, to find that, it is really, I think, in trusting the data long term and being like, okay, good process begets bad results. And, you want to trust the team that's actually doing the right things, even if they're losing. Even if the White Sox are playing bad, you might like how Andrew Vaughn is hitting, even though he's starting cold. He might be a candidate to continue to drive in RBIs, but is he going to get runs? No one's really hitting behind him. How do you figure that out? How do you really trust who's who? I personally think you want to use the most advanced, decision level metrics, prediction level metrics based on what's expected to happen versus what we've seen happen before. It's just the best method versus, this happened yesterday. So it's not easy to do. It's not easy to separate that all out. But if you can, it's definitely the way to approach sports in general, because you'll just be on a different path than everybody else. And I think in the most general sense, that gives you more data. You can, because it's very easy to see the path everyone else is on. But if you also have a path that you alone follow, it's a triangulation of information, not really just a linear connection, which I feel most play trying to make.
I think that that's so very well said. And it's very difficult to be able to take a look at just some of the numbers and be like, yep, this guy's doing for regression, this guy's doing for positivity when it comes to baseball, because we do have very small sample sizes right now. But I think that you do a great job of laying that out. It's Justin Perri, who does such amazing work over at Pitcher List, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And that leads me to this. How about if we try to put this into process a little bit more? We've got ourselves all 30 teams in Major League Baseball on Tuesday going at it. Now, it's a little bit difficult to know what we're going to get in the Braves game, as that was supposed to be Spencer Strider's start. He hits the injured list, so very unfortunate to see that. So we're TBD on that game. But in terms of what we've got for Tuesday, anything that's standing out for you in terms of something that you're going to look to bet, or maybe it's just a team or a player in general that you want to watch out for?
I think it's going to be an interesting spot in this Philadelphia Phillies New York Mets series with Chris Sanchez going against, I think it's going to be Griffin Canning for the Mets.
Yep.
And Chris Sanchez coming off of this electric start, I think double-digit strikeouts. Not exactly his game. He can do it. But Giants at home, now going to play at Citi Field. He's struggled a little bit against the Dodgers. I think the Mets kind of have that pop. We've seen, Lindor open this series off pretty spectacularly. I think this could be a tough spot for Sanchez. He didn't get out of the 6th inning last May when he went to New York. I think that was the only, and then he also faced them in September on the road, and he did okay there, but the walks were really high. So I like that idea for the Mets here to maybe score some runs. And I'm not really sold on Canning. The contact that he gives up is pretty conducive for the Mets to get some big hit. I mean, it's for the Phillies to get some big hits, which they rely on. So looking for like a Harper and a Schwarber to get involved, unless the weather's terrible here in New York tomorrow, which I think it's raining a little bit tonight. I don't think it's going to be bad for any particular reason. I think there's reason to take the over. I think there's reason to expect some runs early on in that game. I think a first 5 total over if you're getting like a 3.5. I haven't looked at the lines yet. I don't hate that by any means. I think it's a good angle. It's a tough sell, of course, at Citi Field, but these guys, I think, in terms of how Canning plays, it's a lot of balls on the ground. It's a lot of hard hit balls. You're not, doing that great with the breaking value. I think he's going to throw a lot of fastballs and you see them turned around. So I like the Phillies to, take a couple of those fastballs for a ride. He had a 1.40 whip last year. He has a 3.43 ERA to open up this year. It's not going to last. He's going to give up some runs at some point. So yeah, I like that first 5 team total. Sanchez coming off that big home start. Now you fade him a little bit on the road against 2 good lineups here, a warm day in New York. I like this a lot.
And with Christopher Sanchez, something I just have gathered with him, just feels like his off-speed stuff moves a little bit differently in Philadelphia as well. That bears out in the fact that since the beginning of the 2024 season, a sub-240 ERA at home, 473 away from him, and Griffin Canning looks reborn out there in New York. So I love that look, and I always love getting you aboard, Justin, as I know that you're doing a tremendous job on the baseball front. You're doing amazing work in terms of all things basketball, because I know you're parsing through, taking a look at the NBA playoffs, getting set for the WNBA, and so much more. So let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you, and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, for sure. Easiest way to follow along with everything I do is over on the Twitter app. I think it's a pretty set schedule this week. We're going to be doing Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night live betting streams for the NBA using our Shot Quality Live software. So check those out, streaming through Twitter and YouTube at Shot Quality Bets. And then should have some stuff coming out for baseball soon with Pitcher List. I will be doing some deep dives into the pitch level value data, their decision level value data, their swing value data that they use, that they build out their own metrics through the data available from MLB. So once that all kind of comes online in the next couple of weeks, once the sample sizes get to a bigger level, I'll be doing some deep dives into players, what the data means, how to use it. So that'll be a lot of fun. I really think what Pitcher List has is invaluable, and honestly should probably shut up about it because it's pretty sizable, edge a la Shot Quality in basketball. And I think, at some point this stuff just becomes, you either have it or you're a step behind. I definitely recommend using it, at least having the knowledge of it, because at some level, if it's part of the market, it's valuable. Even if you don't love it, understanding where people might be using it to create an angle and like why the market could be moving on something is just as valuable as using it to fuel your own bets, right? Understanding the lens and the language of the predictive stats is just as important as learning what sabermetrics was 15 years ago.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that it is so valuable to take a look at all the information for Pitcher List. Has been very nice to see a little bit more run for them on Sunday Night Baseball over the last few years as well. Yeah. So that's something that has been very welcome by me. And every single time Justin joins this show, we always get great analysis from him. And he supplied that once again today. So a big thanks to Justin for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we catch them all.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here, lovely Las Vegas, for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It is always great to be joined by Justin Perri. He does such great work over at Shot Quality Bets. He does an amazing job over at Pitcher List, Action Network, and so much more. Every single time he joins me, lends such great insights, and did so once again today. So a big thanks to Justin for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at Junit_D1, and we're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So how about if we do get things started with 901, 902 on the betting board. The Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we are on to Cincinnati. They're onto the road. They're facing off against the Miami Marlins. Edward Cabrera is on the bump for the Fish, and Nick Martinez is on the bump for the Reds. The Reds do find themselves between minus 117 to minus 125 favorites, and between plus 105 to plus 109 is the number on the Fish. 8.5 is the total. Under is minus 120, and the over is even, and set the Reds at a minus 122. Right now, I'm seeing about a minus 120 out there. I'd be willing to lay that small number with the Reds. I don't think that they're going to be scoring 24 runs like they did a few days ago, but I do like the way that Nick Martinez just does not put anyone on base cheaply. Last year, he gave quite literally 1.1 walks per 9 innings. You should see a little bit of rise in that this season, but still, even this season, he has posted up a 6 ERA, but he's pitched better than that. He's getting 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. The big thing with him has been the deep ball, allowing 4 home runs in 4 starts this far this season. And for the Miami Marlins, you got very much a station-to-station sort of team. A bunch has had a tough time in general in terms of finding guys on named Matt Mervis to be able to slug out the ball. I do like the fact that they've got a lot of guys to move the line, like Xavier Edwards. He hit for a cycle last season. He's been able to give you north of a 365 on base. You've got Connor Norby now off the injury list. He and Otto Lopez are pretty solid at being able to get on base. Dane Myers is sitting right around 300, so I like what these guys bring to the table. And now you've got AC Sanchez back at the fold as well. And for the Cincinnati Reds, Ellie De La Cruz has been inconsistent this year, but we all know that when that guy's firing on all cylinders, he's one of the best hitters in all of baseball. Gavin Lux is actually giving you something. So he's been a little bit of a disappointment for me in his career, but he's hitting right around at 300 with a 400 on base. TJ Friedel, Jose Trevino, Neovali Marte. These are guys that are starting to step up for the team, and though Matt McClain hasn't hit for a lot of average, he's done a good job of being able to hit that power ball. And for the Cincinnati Reds, I do like this bullpen. I don't think that you necessarily have that one lockdown guy or anything like that, but that said, the likes of Alexis Diaz, Taylor Rogers, Scott Barlow, Tony Santillan, these are all rock solid options. Now Emilio Pagani's got a relatively low ERA this season, but man, that guy's not reliable to say the least. And on the Miami Marlins side of things, Anthony Bender, Anthony Veziano, Calvin Fauché, you've got a lot of shaky options in that bullpen that I really don't like. Now Max Meyer was able to give them a good start yesterday, so they were able to save a little bit more of that bullpen. So I do think that that's going to be helping out a little bit on this front end. They're going to need every bit of it because with Edward Cabrera, you just don't know what you're going to get out of this guy. Like Edward Cabrera could easily go out there, give you 7 shutdown innings, give you 10 strikeouts, everything like that. Or he could walk 7 guys and be out in the second inning. That is the Edward Cabrera experience right there, because for his career, he is giving up 5.2 walks per 9 innings, but he's also getting 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. His first 2 starts of the season, he has given up 6 walks in 9 2/3 innings, and he has given up a pair of bombs, but also has 11 strikeouts as well. So I do think that he's actually going to find it a little bit more Cabrera in this spot, so I'm going to be taking a look at the under, semi-total 7.7, but with the Reds, set them at a minus 122. I'm willing to back them on the money line, 903, 904 on the betting board. The Philadelphia Phillies set the road facing off against the New York Mets as Griffin Canning is on the bump for the Metropolitans, and Christopher Sanchez is on the bump for the Phillies. Phillies are minus 120 to minus 125 favorites, plus 105 to plus 113, that number on the Mets. You've got a total of 8 with the under at a minus 120, and the over is even, and I'm going to be willing to back the Mets here on the money line. Was willing to take a plus 105 or higher. Now Griffin Canning had a miserable season last year. year in which he was posting up an ERA that was north of 5. His strikeout numbers were way down. He was getting less than 7 strikeouts per 9, but has been a bit better this year. His strikeouts per 9 rate is back up to 9. He's getting a 3.43 ERA. And for Christopher Sanchez, has not been the same guy away from home rather than at home since the beginning of the 2024 season. 2.39 ERA, 0.7 home runs per 9 innings at home. This rises up to a 4.73 ERA away from home. So less than tremendous there. You do have a Philadelphia Phillies bullpen that is one of the worst in all baseball as well. Now, I do like their big three, Matt Strahm, Ryan Kerkering, along with Jose Alvarado. Kerkering had a little bit of a rough weekend, but all in all, these guys are solid. But when you get into the likes of Tanner Banks, Jordan Romano, these are the guys that are very unreliable. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, one of the most high-powered offenses in all of baseball. You have to like what Kyle Schwarber has done this season. North of 400 base, 7 home runs. He's off to a tremendous start this year. Nick Castellanos, after he was so rough to begin last season, he's been able to give you about a 360 on base, hitting at 300. Bryce Harper's up to 5 bombs with a 400 on base. Now, some of the guys at the bottom, Max Kepler, JT Realmuto, especially the likes of a Brandon Marsh, the guys like this, they have been having a little bit of a rough go with it. Alec Boehm, obviously, as well. But all in all, that top half of the lineup is one of the best that you're going to find in all of baseball. But I do believe that with the Mets now getting a little bit of warmer temperatures out there in New York, they should be able to start slugging the ball a little bit more because Juan Soto has been great at moving the line, still giving you north of 370 on base, just hasn't necessarily been able to hit the deep ball. Francisco Lindor is rounding into form. Pete Alonso, 5+ bombs. He's been the main guy that has supplied the power for the team. You have Mark Vientos dealing with a little bit of injury, but I mean, Luan Acuna has been pretty solid in the infield as well. And for the Mets, this is a top 5 team with regards to bullpen ERA. I'm not necessarily super bullish on the shorter guys like Reed Garrick, Ryan Stanek, guys like this have been a little bit shaky, but Oscar Berzobin is able to give you multiple innings. So is a Buto, Max Chronic. So I do like what these guys are able to bring to the table, and I do think that Griffin Canning goes out there, gives a relatively solid start. I did somebody told it an 8.1, like the over, and I had a plus 105 or higher. Looking at that Mets money line, 9-5, 9-6 on the betting board. The St. Louis Cardinals are on the road facing off against the Atlanta Braves. This was supposed to be Spencer Strider for the Braves going up against Andre 3000 Palante of the St. Louis Cardinals, but it looks like Spencer Strider has been scratched from this game. This was an initial opener with Strider going of about minus 220 to minus 225 on the Bravos. I was seeing about a plus 180, plus 185 with that number being for the St. Louis Cardinals and a total of 8 over and under both at minus 110. But I had said, we shall see what is going to be happening on this front because I was willing to go up to a minus 110 on that Braves run line if it was going to be Strider, and I was going to be going in on that 8 over. If it's some sort of bullpen game, that's probably a difference of about 60 cents or so for the Atlanta Braves because Strider looked pretty solid, I would say, in that first start against the Toronto Blue Jays, but he's back on the injured list. That's not great to say the least, and now you're probably going to be relying upon some sort of a spot starter. Is this perhaps like a Bryce Elder sort of start? And I mean, if it's Bryce Elder, that's actually worse than a bullpen game, in my opinion. You've got Añel de los Santos, Dylan Leo been relatively solid in this Braves bullpen. Pierce Johnson is shaky to say the least. I like Raisel Iglesias. And for the Atlanta Braves, to their credit, pretty much everyone in terms of their lineup, sans Ronald Acuna Jr., is back in the fold. Now, some of the likes of Jarred Kelenic, Nick Allen, you need a little bit more out of them. Michael Harris has been a bit of a disappointment as well, but Sean Murphy has been able to come in there, supply a little bit of power for this team with 4 home runs, not hitting for a lot of average, but is able to give you that deep ball. Alex Verdugo has done a nice job moving the line ever since he came back into the fold as well. Matt Olson's still a little bit shaky, but he was able to have a home run over the weekend, and Austin Riley's all of a sudden back with 6+ home runs this season, and for the St. Louis Cardinals, you got quite a few guys that move the line for the team. The young guys like Jordan Walker, Victor Scott have been able to give you some good performances recently. Now, Walker is starting to regress a little bit, but Scott has been maintaining. You've been able to get really good production as well out of Nolan Gorman in the small sample size that he supplied this season. Last year, just could not get on base to save his life. Now he's back up to a 330 on base. Brendan Donovan hitting north of a 340 is rock solid, and Wilson Contreras, you have to believe that he's going to get online sooner rather than later. And for the Cardinals, they themselves have had a little bit of shakiness with this bullpen. Ryan Fernandez, Kyle Leahy, these are guys that are probably going to be posting up ERAs right around 4 this season. Jojo Romero has been a little bit hit or miss, but I like he and Ryan Helsley in that sort of 8th and 9th inning duo spot. I do think that they're going to be able to give you some production. Now, just not necessarily a stand of Andre Andre 3000 Palante, as this guy for his career gives you less than 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He gives up right around about 3.5 walks per 9 innings. He's pretty much trying to make sure that he doesn't give up a home run. He doesn't do anything else well, but that said, if you're getting someone like a Bryce Elder or something like that, it puts it into a tricky spot for the Atlanta Braves, because with Mr. Palante, he's actually put together an okay season thus far. 3.22 ERA, again 4.38 fielding dependent though, so this is a very interesting one to say the least. When it was supposed to be Strider, I set the Braves at a minus 223. If this is a bullpen game, probably leaning a bit closer to a minus 155, minus 160. If it's Bryce Elder, it probably goes to like a minus 140 or so. And then if you do get a bullpen game, 8.5 or less, I'd be looking at the over, and then a 9 or higher to the under. If it's Elder, might be willing to go up to a 9. I still lean a little bit closer to an 8.5, so we shall see what the Braves attack is going to be with Spencer Strider being out of the fold, but that certainly changes the handicap quite a bit there, so try to give you my best as I'm looking at this, depending upon who that starter for the Braves is going to be. 907, 908 on the betting board. The LA Dodgers are on the road facing off against the Chicago Cubs. Shota Imanaga is on the bump for the Cubs, and Dustin May hopes that it's May Day for the Cubs. He goes for the Dodgers. The Dodgers are very slim favorites, anywhere between minus 117 to minus 120. Even money to plus 108 is that number on the Cubs. Right now, we have no numbers up in terms of a total for this game, because this is all going to be predicated on the Wrigley Field win. But I do have my handicap total, set mine at an 8.9, so 8.5 or less, I'm going to be in on the over, a 9 or higher to the under. It looks like the wind is going to be blowing out, but it's not going to be blowing out overly hard. You're probably looking at about 5 mile per hour winds, and it's not going to be overly warm out there in Wrigley, probably reaching about 60 or so. So that's where I landed with regards to that total. But with the Cubs, I did set them at a minus 116 on the money line. I'm going to be willing to lay this number with Dustin May. I'm just not necessarily a believer in him. He has been off and on injured, and every time it looks like we're going to see the true potential of Dustin May, he just ends up getting injured once again, and just has never really been able to show it, as he's got really good zip on his fastball, but he doesn't get a lot of strikeouts for his career. 8.1 strikeouts per 9 innings and 3 starts as far this season. The 106 ERA just, to me, is very misleading. He's only getting 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He is giving up north of 3 walks per 9 innings. I think that there's real regression coming for Dustin May, and for Shota Imanaga, this guy has been the real deal since coming on over from Japan. 5 starts as far this season, 2.22 ERA. Now, he does have a 4.44 fielding dependent, as he's given up a lot of contact with about 6.7 strikeouts per 9 innings this season. After that, it was more like 9 strikeouts per 9 innings a season ago. That said, I do think that he's going to round into a little bit of better form, and for the Cubs last season, they were very supreme with their bullpen towards the back half of the season. Now they are dealing with a few injuries this season, like Ryan Brazier and company, so that has muted them a little bit. Porter Hodge has had a bit of a rough go of it, and the Chicago Cubs bullpen ERA numbers are just completely blown out of the water with what we saw on Friday against the Arizona Diamondbacks, so they're going to be towards the bottom of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA for quite some time. Currently, they're 27th, and for the LA Dodgers, despite the fact that you've got a few injuries, Blake Trine going on the injured list, Michael Kopech, guys like this has still been an above-average bullpen in the big leagues, as you've got someone like a Ben Casprias, who's able to give you multiple innings. I like what you're able to get out of Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates, guys like this, and for the LA Dodgers, they honestly had a little bit of a tough time hitting this past week or so. You know that they're not going to be staying down for too long with regards to those bats. When you've got Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, guys that are able to give you 5+ home runs to begin the season, move the line with north of a 350 on base. Now, Max Muncy has been a pretty big disappointment for this team. For Max Muncy, he has yet to get a home run thus far this season, hitting below the Mendoza line of 200, but Tommy Edman, he's got 7 bombs to his name already this season. Teoscar Hernandez doing a nice job of being able to hit those homers as bomb for the Chicago Cubs. You've gotten some great production towards the bottom of the lineup, as guys like Pete Crow Armstrong that were not necessarily so great last season, they've been able to step up in a big way. Now, the one guy that I do have a little bit of concern with is the younger guy in Matt Shaw. He's still hitting just a $172, has not necessarily been able to give you a lot of power, but Kyle Tucker, 6 home runs, 400 on base. He's been a nice addition for the team. Say Suzuki is up to 6 bombs, 350 on base, so I do think that the Cubs should be a bit of a favorite here. Set them at a minus 116, so look at Cubs money line, and with regards to total, 8.5 or less, in on the over 9 or higher, the under 909, 910 on the betting board. The Milwaukee Brewers at the road to facing off against the San Francisco Giants, as Jordan Nix goes for the Giants, and Jose Quintana is on the bump for the Brewers. The on game is 7.5, over and under are both at minus 110, and for the Brewers, we are going to be getting them between plus 105 to a plus 120, minus 125 to minus 132. That number on the San Francisco Giants, and I set the Giants at a minus 136, so I'm going to be willing to roll with them on the money line. For Jose Quintana, first two starts with the Milwaukee Brewers have been absolutely supreme. He goes out there in that first start against the Arizona Diamondbacks when they really needed some length. He supplies 7 scoreless innings, and then he backs that up by giving up 1 run in 5+ innings in his previous start. But the 0.71 ERA is backed up by a 3.82 fielding independent as he's getting 4.5 strikeouts at 2.1 walks per 9 innings. And last season with the Mets, he was lucky. Last season, he had a 3.75 ERA with a 4.56 fielding independent, getting 7 strikeouts but 3.3 walks per 9 innings. So I do have concern that it's all going to fall out here. The Brewers also do have a bottom 6 bullpen in terms of ERA this season, but I do believe that that's going to sort itself out. Abner Uribe has been rock solid for them, and this team was number 1 in terms of bullpen ERA last season in the National League. And you've got a lot of the same guys that are back from a season ago. Yo Payam, Elvis Piguero, Jared Koenig, Trevor McGill, all these guys I think are going to be able to do a nice job of stepping up there. Now they do have to face off against a San Francisco Giants lineup that has been one of the most fearsome in all baseball. Wilmer Flores scoring into yesterday has 6 home runs, not aiming for a ton of average, but he's certainly doing a nice job putting bat to ball. Tyler Fitzgerald, after he had that massive run of home runs during the summer last season, not aiming for as much power, but he, Jung-Ho Lee are both guys hitting above a 300. Mike Yastrzemski right around about a 400 base, and for Jung-Ho Lee, he had 3 home runs over the last 14 or so days as well. William Adames, the former Brewer, just out hitting to save his life, but Matt Chapman now moving the line as well. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, you do have to like the fact that you've got a pair of guys hitting above 300 for this unit. Alfredo Lavon, Bryce Terang. The infield spots with Vinny Capra, Joey Ortiz, guys like this. It's been a little bit difficult for them, but now you've got Rhys Hoskins starting to step up, move the line for the team. Christian Yelich, William Contreras, they've had a little bit of a rough go of it this season, but Contreras, 3 home runs over the last 14 days. They're starting to pick it up there, but for the San Francisco Giants, I've actually really liked what I've seen out of Jordan Hicks. Hicks had like a really good first month and a half of the season as a starter last year, and then it just went down the toilet bowl, and for Jordan Hicks, he's rekindling that magic they had towards the beginning part of the season last year. Now, and his last start just got completely destroyed. 6.04 ERA, but he has a 4.24 fielding independent. He's not giving up a lot of deep balls as he's giving up 0.8 home runs per 9 innings. I do think that we're going to see a little bit of reversal, of course, because it did look like he was getting things very much online, and then he gets completely smacked around in his last starts against the Yankees and the Phillies on the road. I do think that he's going to be able to find that good form they had in his first 2 starts of the season, and I do think that this is going to be a game in which you see both of these offenses get a little bit of something going. As for the San Francisco Giants, it's far from the worst bullpen in the big leagues. It's far from the best bullpen in the big leagues. Camilo Duvall has been all over the place over the last few seasons, but like of Lou Trevino, Eric Miller, Ryan Walker, these are solid bullpen pieces, not necessarily amazing bullpen pieces. Walker did have that blown save over the weekend against the LA Angels, but I do think that he's going to bounce back a little bit more here, and it's a circumstance where I'm going to be willing to buy in on the money line of the Giants. Set them at a minus 136, and do like that over, set my total at 8.1. 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board. The New York Yankees hit the road to face off against the Cleveland Guardians. Tanner Bybee is on the bump for the Guardians. Will Warren goes for the Yankees, and the Yankees are pretty much in a pick'em game between even money and minus 110 is the number on them, and minus 108 to minus 115 is your price on Cleveland. 8 is the total. Over and under, anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115, and for the Guardians, I did set them at a minus 147. I'm going to be willing to back them. Now, Tanner Bybee has been absolutely miserable to start the season, but I do believe that it's going to get a little bit better for him as he last season was able to supply that 3.47 ERA. He was getting about 9.5 strikeouts at 2.3 walks per 9 innings, so I like what he was able to bring to the table there, and this season it just went down the toilet bowl. 5.85 ERA, a fielding independent that's 2 points higher than that, so big giant issue there. Meanwhile, for Will Warren, he has made 10 career pitching appearances at the big league level, and he has given up at least 3 runs in 6 of them. He's got a ERA lifetime of an 8.22, down to about a 5 this season, but still gives up a career 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. He's still giving up right around about 4.5 walks per 9 as well. So these are big giant issues for him, and for the Cleveland Guardians, you do have yourselves a bunch that has been able to get something from the top of the lineup, while the bottom of the fold has been, quite honestly, really miserable for them. Like so Brian Rocchio, Nolan Jones, Jackenzie Noel, Lane Thomas, they're just providing you with nothing whatsoever. But you have to love the way that Steven Kwan has been hitting at the top of things as he entered into this series, giving the team about a 385 on base with 4 home runs, so actually giving you some solid power to go along with moving the line. Carlos Santana has been a little bit inconsistent, only about 2 home runs this season, but Kyle Manzardo, he's up to 6 home runs, only about a 212 average, but a solid on base. You've got Jose Ramirez, Gabriel Urias, both with 4 home runs apiece. They're moving the line as well. And then for the New York Yankees, without question, this is one of the best lineups in all of baseball, but they do average closer to about 6.5 runs per game at home. When they're on the road, this does go down to about 4.5 runs per game. And with Aaron Judge, he should have had an extra home run in that series against the Tampa Bay Rays, but still entered into the series with 7 bombs with north of a 450 on baseball. Goldschmidt, he's moving the line. He's giving you 400 on base. Ben Rice has been a really nice find. He and Trent Grisham, it combined 11 home runs. Both of these guys give you north of a 385 on base. Like what these guys are bringing to the table, though. Anthony Volpe, after a nice start to the season, he's been cooling down a little bit, and you have to have your trepidations with regards to this New York Yankees bullpen. They didn't necessarily get the start that they were looking for out of Clark Schmidt. Really like what Luke Weaver has been able to bring to the table, but Devin Williams has been a little bit of an albatross for the team. When they've had Brent Hedrick in there, he's been rock solid, and for the Cleveland Guardians, they used up Paul Sewald yesterday, which that's not a bad thing because he is not very good in my opinion. He gave up a pair of runs, but the likes of Joey Cantillo, Cade Smith, Tim Herron, Hunter Gaddis, these have all been very rock-solid options, but for the Cleveland Guardians, they've really got Emmanuel Clase struggling right now. That's something that they do need to address, but I do think that in the end, Cleveland is going to get a far better start out of Tanner Bybee than the New York Yankees are going to out of Will Warren. I did set my total at 88.8, so I like the over, and I do like the money line of the Guardians, set them at a minus 147. 913, 914 on the betting board. The Seattle Mariners hit the road. They're facing off against the Boston Red Sox, as you've got Brian Bayo, who's on the bump for the Red Sox for his season debut, and Bryce Miller goes for Seattle. Seattle is an underdog of any between plus 114 to a plus 118. Meanwhile, between a minus 129 to a minus 135 is your number on Boston. 9 is the total, over and under both at minus 110. And with regards to Boston, I did set them as the underdog of plus 108. I'm going to be looking at the Seattle Mariners on the money line. Now, if you take a look at Bryce Miller throughout his career, he gives up an ERA that's more than a 1.5 higher on the road rather than at home, but he took some nice strides last year in reversing that a little bit, and for Miller, he's honestly pitched better than what the raw ERA numbers would indicate. 3.43 ERA thus far this season, but a 3.08 fielding independent. He's went north of 21 innings in his 4 starts. He's only allowed 1 home run per 9 innings. He, for his career, has been a solid swing and miss guy, not necessarily an amazing one, and he's doing a little bit more than Brian Bayo. Last season, he only gave the team about 7.1 strikeouts per 9 innings, registered a 4.49 ERA with 1.4 bombs allowed per 9 innings, and in his minor league rehab starts, he actually was able to get a lot of swings and misses. He also had a nice Boeing 7.07 ERA, so that's not tremendous, and this is a Red Sox bullpen that's one of the worst out there in all baseball. When you've got to roll to Chapman as your closer, that's not a place where you want to be. Greg Weissert has been giving up a bunch of runs. Brendan Bernardino has been relatively solid for the team thus far, and I do like the fact that they got Garrett Whitlock back in that multi-inning role in the bullpen, but all in all, these guys have not necessarily been able to pan out, and for the Seattle Mariners, Andres Munoz is one of the better closers you're going to find in all baseball. You have been dealing with a few injuries, but now you've got Gregor Santos back after he missed darn near all of last season as well, so that should be able to elevate this team a little bit more moving forward. The guy likes of Gabe Spire and company, not amazing, but you know what? They're getting the job done, and for Seattle, this has been a team that when they've been away from home, they've been averaging darn near 5 runs per game. That is a top 8 mark in terms of runs per game in baseball for Seattle. It's just a case where their offensive numbers at home really suppresses what they do overall, because Seattle is pretty much the most pitcher-friendly ballpark that you could find in all baseball, but you've had Cal Raleigh supply 9 home runs thus far this season. He has been incredible, not necessarily hitting for a bunch of average, but a 333 on base. J.P. Crawford is hitting a miserable 213, and you've got Randy Arozarena hitting at the Mendoza line of 200, but both of these guys have a north of 350 on base, so they're still finding a way to be able to move the line. Rowdy Tellez has not necessarily been able to find it this year for the team, but had that big home run against the Blue Jays a few days ago. You've got Dylan Moore, who has been able to hit 300 for the team. That's big with Victor Robles currently being injured, and on the flip side for the Boston Red Sox, it's been very hit or miss in terms of the lineup, as even in that series against the Chicago White Sox, it's not like they were necessarily supreme with regards to their bats. I like what I've been seeing out of Alex Bregman, who typically he starts out the year not so great. This year, 375 on base, 4 home runs. He'll more than accept that. Weiler Abreu nearly a 400 on base with 4 home runs. That's solid, but Jaron Duran's giving you less than a 300 on base. Tristan Casas has been awful at the plate. David Hamilton is giving you nothing whatsoever. Christian Campbell, very nice rookie season thus far. North of 400 on base, 3 home runs. I like what I'm seeing there, but there is some, shall we say, unreliability with the Boston Red Sox right now with Bayo making his first start of the season. He might not be able to go very deep in this game, so I'm well inside with the Mariners. I set them at a minus 108, like the Mariners on the money line. Set by total 9.6, so I'm also in on the over. 915, 916 on the betting board. The Minnesota Twins are playing us to the Chicago White Sox. Davis Martin is on the bump for the Southsiders, and you've got Bailey Ober on the bump for Minnesota. And Minnesota is a minus 230 to a minus 250 favorite. Between plus $2 and plus 214 is that number on the Southsiders. And the total on this game, it is anywhere between 8 and 8.5. On the 8.5, the under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105. On the 8, the over is minus 125, and the under is plus 105. And if you're looking at the run line of the Chicago White Sox, you're going to be able to get a run half for a minus 105 to a minus 110. With the Twins, you're laying between minus 110 to a minus 115. And I'm willing to lay that run line of the Twins. I'll be willing to lay up to a minus 114 on that run line. For the Chicago White Sox, it just goes back to the fact that this offense is generating nothing. Less than 3 runs per game for them on the road this far this season. That is a bottom 5 mark that you're going to find in all of baseball. To have Andrew Benintendi back in the fold, and he's been able to give the team a few home runs. And I still remember when he was with the Boston Red Sox, he was actually a really good bat for them. Andrew Vaughn has a little bit of pop in the bat, but he just has not been able to hit for average or power this far this season. Lennon Sosa has been one of your best guys in terms of getting on base with right around about a 300 on base. Just a miserable team right now. The bullpen honestly hasn't been like the world's worst for them, but they were dealing with Mike Clevenger getting a few innings in that bullpen. Not necessarily great there. Mike Vasil actually has a little bit of upside. They brought him in for some long relief. He's been able to do a solid job, and Cam Boucher has been able to give you some good innings as well, but when you're looking at Brandon Eisert as a guy that you're looking to for some solid innings, that's not a place where you want to be. Tyler Gilbert has been a bit of a disaster for them, and when it comes to Davis Martin, he's been a little bit shaky just throughout his career in general. Like, I really liked him when he was a rookie, and then he goes out for the entirety of the 2023 season due to injury, returned towards the back half of the 2024 campaign, but just has been up and down ever since then. Thus far this season, 4.84 ERA, but at 5.27 fielding independent. He's only getting about 5.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's been allowing a home run half per 9 innings, so you do have your trepidations there. Now, for the Minnesota Twins, this has been one of the biggest disappointments in all of baseball, and shock, surprise, surprise, Royce Lewis back on the injured list for this team. And now you're dealing with Matt Wallner being out as well. Wallner was a guy that was actually doing a really nice job in terms of being able to move the line, get on base, but I do believe that some of these bats are going to pick it up. Carlos Correa has been hitting right around about a 200 this season. I do have to believe that he's going to be a little bit better than that moving forward. Byron Buxton does have 4 home runs, but just a 277 on base. I think that gets a little bit better. Willie Castro hitting for just a 225. That's been a bit of an issue as well, but Harrison Bader, trio of homers, he's been able to give this team a little bit of production. And for the Minnesota Twins, I'm actually quite bullish on this bullpen. Griffin Jacks had a little bit of a rough go of it last week, but he overall is a relatively solid bullpen piece, like the pickup of Danny Kaloum. You've been able to get some good innings as well out of some like Cole Sands, Yohan Duran, and someone that I like in the back half of that bullpen as well. And just flat out, I don't think that the Chicago White Sox are going to be able to do their part with regards to this total, especially with Bailey Ober getting past that first start, because I don't know what it is about Bailey Ober, but his first start of the year, he's always absolutely terrible. He got absolutely trucked in the first start of the series once again this season as well, and ever since then, the last 3 starts, I'm not going to say he was amazing, but over his last 3 starts, he's won a combined 16 and a third innings. He's given up 5 runs, so he's starting to look like that Bailey Ober that we all know and love. So if you look at that 6.16 ERA, it's very much marred by the fact that he had 1 rough start in first career, 9 strikeouts to 2 walks per 9 innings. Does give up a little bit more of the deep ball than you'd like, with about 1.4 home runs per 9 innings, but one of the White Sox is going to be able to hit that deep ball. So I did set the Twins as a minus 114 on the run line. I'm going to be willing to lay that run line, and with regards to this total of an 8, I am willing to go over on the 8, but I'm starting to see some 8.5s at a minus 115. Personally, I'd rather have an 8.5 under rather than an 8 over, just with the lack of faith in the White Sox lineup, as I did set my total at an 8.2. So looking at that 8.5 under and the Twins run line, 917, 918 on the betting board. The Houston Astros play against the Toronto Blue Jays. Chris Bassett is the hook, line, and sinker for the Jays, and Rodel Blanco is on the bump for Houston. 8.5 is the total. Over and under anywhere between minus 105 to minus 115, and between minus 110 to minus 115. That number on Houston, and between even money / plus 102 to a minus 105. That number on Toronto, and with Toronto, I did set them as a underdog in this ordeal of a plus 106. So I'd be willing to go to a minus 106 on that Astros money line. Currently, we're not finding that, but if you're looking to lay a run half with the Astros, I'm finding as high as a plus 185 out there, and I would be willing to take that Astros run line as of right now at that plus 185 that I'm seeing. So that's how I'd be playing this right now. We'll see how things progress in the AM, because I would like to be able to get in on a little bit more of a money line. So either see the Astros come down by a few cents or see Toronto be a little bit more plus money, but I would be willing to take that because I do think that there's enough in this Astros lineup for them to be able to cover a run line. Now, with the Astros, it's been relatively rough for for them to begin the season at the plate, but I do think that they're going to be stepping up a little bit more moving forward. You've had Jose Altuve continue to be rock solid, move the line, hit about a 300, give you a little bit of pop, but I do think that Christian Walker is hitting below the Mendoza line of 200 is going to be able to pick it up a little bit. They are still looking for a few answers with Alex Bregman deciding to go to Boston in the offseason, but I do think that someone like a Mauricio Dubon, who typically is good at hitting for average, not necessarily so much power, is going to give you a little bit more as well. Jeremy Pena, give you just a 225 with 3 home runs. I expect that to go northward, and for the Astros in general, going into yesterday, just 17 home runs in the first 21 games of the season. I do think that they'll do a little bit better than that, especially Yordan Alvarez, just 2 home runs at a 206 average entering into yesterday, so I did think that positivity is coming for them. And for the Blue Jays, you've had quite a few guys do a nice job of moving the line, as you've got George Springer is now hitting well above a 300 this season after he had that miserable year last season, and we're seeing a career renaissance as well out of Bo Bichette after he last season was just all sorts of banged up. You knew that that was not the full guy that we have seen in past seasons. He's now hitting above a 300 as well. Vlad Jr. not hitting for a lot of power, just 1 home run entering into yesterday, but still giving you 400 on base. You've had Anthony Santander have his struggles. You know that he's going to rise up a little bit. As a matter of fact, for the Blue Jays, just 12 home runs in their first 22 games entering into yesterday as well. So I do think that that is going to be going very much northward, and you'd have a guy in Chris Bassett who's been able to find it this season. For Bassett, he's been a little bit shaky ever since coming on over to Toronto, but for him this season, it feels like he's just sort of found his zen. Now, I don't think that he's going to be able to continue the 0.77 ERA, giving up 2 runs over the course of his first 4 starts, but he has really lowered on the walks, and he's given up fewer than 2 walks per 9 innings, 12 strikeouts per 9 in his first 4 starts. He has yet to give up a homer. He has been really doing it all, so I love the way that he has come out thus far this season. Then Ronel Blanco was one of the more lucky pitchers in all baseball last season, posting up a 2.80 ERA but a 4.15 fielding independent, as he was giving up about 3.5 walks per 9 innings, and his command has just been off this year. In his 4 starts, 10 walks across 16 and 2/3 innings. That has caused him to bow out of starts a little bit earlier on. Now, I will say Taylor Scott in the bullpen last year for the Astros was very good. He's been a little bit shaky this season. Do expect a little bit of positivity there, but you've got the Bryans, Brian King, Brian DeBrey, along Josh Hader, who are very reliable in the back half of that bullpen. And then for the Blue Jays, this is a bullpen that I'm starting to warm up on. Jeff Hoffman was a relatively good ad. He, Yimi Garcia, Nick Sandlin, I'll give you a 2.75 ERA or better now. Sandlin deals with a little bit of ailments, so that's a bit of an issue, and you've had Chad Green be a little bit dicey over his tenure with the Toronto Blue Jays, but I like him in that bullpen as well. Your Rodriguez is able to lend some long relief, so I would like to see the Blue Jays become a little bit more plus money. I would rather take that money line rather than the Mondo Astros run line, but as of right now, we'll be looking at that plus 185 run line on the Astros, and with the total set mine at 8.3, so at the 8.5, I do like the under. 919, 920 on the betting board. The Texas Rangers are on the road against the A's. As for the Sacramento A's, we got this one correct, as Waldo Beto is going for them, and Patrick Corbin, the old turkey tosser, is on the bump for Texas. Texas is an underdog of any team plus 114 to plus 121, minus 130 to minus 135. That number on the A's, 9.5 to 10 is the total. On the 10, under is minus 120, the over is even. On the 9.5, over is minus 120, the under is even. So my total 10.2. So whether you've got a 9.5 or a 10, I'm going to be looking at this total over for Patrick Corbin since the beginning of the 2021 season. A whopping 5.69 ERA just has been absolutely terrible in so many aspects of baseball, giving up north of a home run and a half per 9 innings in that time span. He only gets about 7.1 strikeouts per 9 as well, and now has to go up against an A's lineup that has been a top 10 team in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. Tyler Soderstrom going into this series with 9 home runs. That is towards the top of all of baseball. He has been very good for this unit. You've had Brent Rooker not necessarily give you a whole bunch of average, but he's doing a nice job, be able to find a way to be able to hit the deep ball, 6+ homers this far this season. Shea Langolaris is not a guy that's going to hit for a lot of average either, but he's been able to do a nice job, give you 5+ bombs this season, and you have found a few guys to be able to find a way on base. Jacob Wilson hitting at 354. Miguel Andujar is hitting darn near 300 as well. Now for the A's, the big issue that you do have with this team is the bullpen. It's been one of the more awful ones in the big leagues. I love what Mason Miller brings to the table, but outside of Mason Miller, you don't know what you're going to get out of anyone else. Tyler Ferguson has actually been pretty rock solid, but Ano Perdomo is north of 5 ERA. Jose Leclerc, Jason Alexander, these guys have just not been great, to say the least. Noah Murdoch is not good, to say the least, but you got on the flip side a Texas Rangers bullpen that, even though the numbers aren't necessarily the world's worst for them, guys like Mark Church and company are guys I don't have a lot of faith in. Luke Jackson is someone that I have my trepidations with, and for the Texas Rangers, this has been a bottom 10 team in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. I do think that this is going to be trending northward, as you've got a guy Marcus Semien, who he's got right now a 209 on base. He's going to be able to rise up from that. Jake Berger has been only able to give you 214 on base, and Jock Peterson is hitting quite literally a 0.55. I mean, maybe these guys have down years, but I do think that this goes northward from here. Wyatt Langford has been dealing with injury. That has been hurting this lineup a little bit, but Josh Young coming back, being able to give you right around about a 285 average. That's rock solid. Adolis Garcia is not hitting for average, but he's been able to give you 4 home runs along Corey Seager, and Seager, ever since that series against the Cubs 2 weeks ago, has been one of the hotter hitters on planet Earth. So I do think that there is some offense to be had for this Texas Rangers team. And for Oswaldo Bido, he's been a little bit fortunate thus far this season. He's posting up a 2.62 ERA, but a fielding dependent that's about a full point higher. He's not necessarily amazing with his swing and miss stuff, less than 8 strikeouts per 9 innings 8 seasons ago. So he's going to lend himself to a lot of contact in a place where in Sacramento the air is very thin, the ball is very much traveling. So I do think that you get yourself a big fat Mondo total here. But I mean, again, it's just really tough to be able to trust some Patrick Corbin. Did some line at a minus 142. I like the ace on the money line and like the over on my total 10.2. 921, 922 on the betting board. It is the San Diego Padres, and they are on the road. They're facing off against the Detroit Tigers. As Nick Pivetta is on the bump for the Pods, and Captain Jack Flaherty goes for Detroit. Detroit is a very, very small favorite of between minus 108 to a minus 115. Between even money to minus 108 is that number on San Diego. 7.5 is the total. Over and under anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115. And with the Tigers, I did set them at a minus 133 on the money line. I'm going to be willing to lay it. If you take a look at what Jack Flaherty has done when he has been in a Tigers uniform, so that goes back to the beginning of the 2024 campaign, and that excludes the starts that he had with the LA Dodgers. He has been rock solid, 2.88 ERA, 3.15 fielding independent, north of 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. And for Nick Pivetta, it's been a career renaissance for him since going on over to the San Diego Padres. 4 runs allowed over his first 4 starts. That said, you've got quite a few guys that are starting to get banged up for this San Diego Padres team, as Jackson Merrill is currently on the injured list. You've got Luis Arias, who gets taken off on a stretcher on Sunday Night Baseball. You don't like to see that. And for the Padres, you still have Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, all these guys. They're very fearsome. Machado's been a little bit hot and cold this year, but Tatis has been able to give you 6+ home runs, including the game difference maker on Sunday. Jason Hayward also lands on the injured list for this team, but I don't think that that's too big of a deal because you've got Kevin Sheets, who's able to do a nice job of being able to give you some solid offense. But the Detroit Tigers all of a sudden are ripping the cover off the ball themselves, as they've been able to get some good production out of Kerry Carpenter. Carpenter has done a nice job being able to give this team north of 5 home runs. He's back up to hitting north of a 275. You've actually had Javi Baez give you a little bit of something this year, so that's very nice to see. They need a little bit more of some of these guys, like a Cole Keith, Justin Henry, Malloy. Still have a few dead bats out there. Trey Sweeney started to pick it up a little bit more, but leaves something to be desired. But Spencer Torkelson, 5+ home runs, north of 390 on base, and this is a Tigers team that they do a really good job of mixing and matching with that bullpen. They do have Bo Brisky, who just hit the injured list, but Will Vest, Brent Herter, Tyler Holton, Tommy Kahnle, all these guys are able to do a nice job in that bullpen, and Herter is able to give you some relatively good length. And for the Padres, this has been a top 5 team in terms of their own bullpen ERA as well. Robert Suarez, Jason Adam, a really good 8th and 9th inning duo. Even something like a Yuki Matsuya they had to use up yesterday. He's been able to do a nice job holding down the fort. Jeremiah Estrada, I like what I'm seeing there. So it is a little bit of an interesting circumstance. Both of these starting pitchers have been very good, and I do think that you're going to get a little bit of a pitcher's duel, but at the same time, I think that it's hard to be able to hold down both of these offenses. So I did set my total at 7.6. At a 7.5 or less, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over. I really like the way that Jack Flaherty has made a roll with the Tigers, set them at a minus 133, so we'll take a shot on that Tigers money line, and I'm going to be in on that total over as well. 923, 924 on the betting board. It is the Baltimore Orioles on the road against the Washington Nationals. Mitchell Parker is on the bump for the Nats, and Dean Kramer goes for Baltimore. Baltimore between minus 128 to minus 135 favorites, between plus 115 to plus 118 is that number on Washington. 9 is the total, over and under, both at minus 110, and with Washington, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on them on the money line. Just a little bit of a fade of Dean Kramer, as I did set my money line price at a minus 117 on the Orioles, so being able to get plus 118 plus, that was my minimum buy point there. And for Mitchell Parker, he's just been a pretty steady Eddie guy. He's not going to light the world on fire with a bunch of strikeouts or anything like that. He's not going to completely wow you with his amazing starts, but I mean, he threw 4 starts as far this season, $1.85 ERA. He's only getting 6 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he needs to work on the 3.3 walks per 9, but I mean, still, he's given up just 1 home run in north of 24 innings. He's doing a nice job of just being able to find a way to be able to keep things clean, and for Dean Kramer, he's been someone that I just have not had any faith in whatsoever for the last few seasons, as this season through 4 starts, he has allowed 15 runs, 14 of which have been earned. He's given up the deep ball too much as he's allowed 5 bombs in these first 4 starts of the season. Last season, he had a 4.10 ERA and a 4.32 fielding dependent, and looks like he's picking up right where he left off with the less swing and miss stuff. He's only getting about 6 strikeouts per 9 innings, so I do like this Baltimore Orioles bullpen. Felix Bautista, Yunier Cano, that's such a supreme 8th and 9th inning duo, and then additionally someone like Brian Baker is able to come in, hold down the fort for the team, and this is a Washington Nationals bullpen that I very much do have my trepidations with when you've got guys like Jose Ferrer, along with Eduardo Salazar, guys like that coming out of the bullpen, Kyle Finnegan as your main closer. That's not necessarily too amazing, and for Washington, this has been a bit of a shaky lineup, to say the least, as well. You have been able to get some good production out of Keibert Ruiz, who's sitting darn near 300 with a little bit of power, but Paul DeJong, CJ Abrams, both of these guys now at the injured list, so Ahmed Rosario is going to be seeing some more at-bats. James Wood has been incredible, 6+ home runs this season, but Dylan Cruz hanging below the Mendoza line of 200 without a lot of power. That's been a little bit of an issue, and on the flip side for Baltimore, you know that these guys are going to be able to step it up a little bit more, as it's been a tough season for Adley Rutschman thus far. Rutschman, he's hitting only about a 299 in terms of that on base. Is up to 4 home runs, and you've had Cedric Mullins give you just some amazing performances. 6 home runs, north of 430 on base. Jordan Westberg is not moving the line, but he's been able to give you 4 home runs as well, and Ramon Urias in a small sample size, he's moving the line, but Jackson Holiday is still trying to fight at the plate. So it's coming off of the injured list. Gunnar Henderson, only about a 270 on base with 2 home runs. You'd like to see a little bit more there, so it does make it a very interesting ordeal, but I just don't really have any faith whatsoever in Dean Kramer. I do think that the offense is going to see a little bit of progression with the Baltimore Orioles moving forward, and I do like that bullpen, so I do think that after you get Kramer out of the fold, he's able to do just enough to be able to hold this game under, as I did set my total at 80.7, so then I had the under, but with the Nationals at a plus 118 or higher, going to be looking at that money line. Now 245, 926 on the betting board. The Kansas City Royals play OC Colorado Rockies. Ryan Felder goes for the Rocks, and Chris with the K. Bubich is on the bump for the Royals, and the Royals who find themselves between minus 205 to minus 218 favorites, and between plus 175 to a plus 185 is that number on the Rockies in FZ total. I'm seeing a straight 8 out there as well. On the 8, the over is minus 120, the under is even. On the 8.5, the under is minus 120, and the over is even. And if you're looking to lay a run half with the Kansas City Royals, you're going to be finding that right around about even money, and I would be willing to take that even money run line. I'd be willing to go up to a minus 113. Chris with the K. Bubich was really good coming out of the bullpen last season, and here in a starting role this season, he's starting to live up to that first round pick moniker that he received many seasons ago, as he's right now giving you 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, a .188 ERA, 270 fielding independent. He's kept the ball in the yard with allowing just 1 home run to 24 innings thus far this season, so I've absolutely loved what I've seen out of him. And then on the flip side, you've got a guy in Ryan Feltner that last year he did cut down on the walks to fewer than 3 walks per 9 innings. Swing and miss stuff hasn't quite been there. His ERA is hovering right around about 4.88. The fielding independent is right on line with that. And for the Colorado Rockies, I will say the bullpen has been a little bit better this year. I need to see it for a longer sample size to believe it with the Colorado Rockies, because year in and year out, they're always one of the worst bullpens that you're going to find in all of baseball. Victor Vodnik last year was relatively okay, and past that, you really just didn't get much out of this bullpen whatsoever. But thus far this season, Anel Shavili has been able to come in and has actually been able to give you a few okay innings for the team. Jimmy Ergett has actually been very good. A sub-2 ERA out of him. Tyler Kinley, I think that we're going to see massive regression here, but his ERA is below 4 as of right now. Now, when you run into some of the longer guys like Bradley Blaylock, Scott Alexander, these guys have been absolutely terrible. But what's even more terrible, the Rockies line up when they're away from home. They're averaging fewer than 2 runs per game when they are away from home. Their home run power is just not there, to say the least. Mickey Moniak is up to 3 home runs overall this season, but it's a team that at home, they're averaging right in the neighborhood of north of 4 runs per contest. Away from home, less than 2 runs per game. And when they've been on the road this season, they have played 12 total road games. They've got 6 home runs, and Hunter Goodman has 3 of them. That's not necessarily tremendous. Michael Tuglia, Ryan McMahon, both hitting less than a $150 when they're away from home. Chris Bryant was hitting a .048 away from home before he hit the injured list. Zach Veen is a guy that they're looking to for some good at-bats, so that's an issue. And for the Royals, they actually are dead last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. The Rockies are dead last in terms of runs per game away from home specifically. The Royals, they just have not been able to get any sort of offense whatsoever generated. 11 home runs in their first 23 games of the season. Nobody with more than 2 bombs. Bobby Witt Jr. still doing a good job getting on base, hitting above 300 with a 370 on base, but it's been a rough season for Salvador Perez, hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. I thought that getting back Vinny Pasquantino would help them out. He's only been able to about $1.95 for the team. Hunter Renfroe has been awful. MJ Melendez has been awful. Cavan Biggio is still not living up to his billing as well. But I do think that they get it going a little bit more here against the Colorado Rockies. I just don't know where you're going to get a lot of run scoring from for the total of north of 8. So I'm going to be taking a shot on the under. I did set my total more on a 7.7/7.8. But with the Royals, I do think that they get just enough online with the Braves to be able to win this game by multiple runs. I did set them at a -113 on the run line. So looking at that run line, and I'm going to be looking at the under. 927, 928 on the betting board. The Pittsburgh Pirates hit the road. They're facing off against the Los Angeles Angels. As you've got Jose Soriano on the bump for the Halos, and Bailey Falter hopes to not live up to his aim for the Buccos. Total on this game is 8.5. The under is -115. The over is -105. And with regards to the money line of the LA Angels, you're going to be finding that between -180 to -190, and between +154 to a +165. That is your number on the Pirates. And for the Pirates, I did set them as an underdog of a +174 if you're looking to lay a run half with the LA Angels, by the way. You're going to find that in the neighborhood of +110 to a +115. I'm going to take that +115 run line. I wouldn't want to go much further down than a +115, but I just can't do it with Bailey Falter. I recognize that with Bailey Falter, he's not going to give up a bunch of walks, and he's going to keep things out in front of him and everything like that, but he just always seems to get hit very, very hard. That has been bared out throughout his entire career, as he's given up a career 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. Thus far this season, a 4.91 ERA compared to a 4.53 Philly pen, so could be worse, but still, it's a rough ordeal for him, to say the least. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, even though they're not like dead last in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA or anything like that, they've had some shakiness with regards to that bullpen. Colin Olderman is currently on the injured list. David Bednar got sent down to the minor leagues a little bit earlier during the season as well, so this has been very much less than savory for them. I do think that Tim Mason might be able to give you a few okay innings, but I have a tough time trusting in a lot of these guys in that bullpen. Meanwhile, for the lineup itself, you've got Brian Reynolds starting to pick it up, but still it's only give you about 310 on base with 3 home runs. For a guy of that caliber, you expect a little bit more out of him. Brian Hayes has hardly been able to hit above 200 for the team. You've been able to get a bit of production out of Oniel Cruz, who's now giving you about a 354 on base, 5 home runs. Do like what I'm seeing there, but Tommy Pham, when he's not waiting for Uber Eats, is hitting about a $150, so that's been not so great. Emmanuel Valdez, he's been dealing with a little bit of ailment, but when he's been out there, he's been able to move the line just a scotch for the team. And for the LA Angels, this has been one of the more fearsome lineups that you're able to find in all of baseball. As for the Angels, Mike Trout, he's not hitting for any sort of average whatsoever, but he has been able to supply the team with 8+ home runs thus far this season. For the Angels, you've also had Kyron Paris, who's been able to give you 5 home runs. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be long-lasting, but I do like the fact that you've also been able to get some good production out of Logan O'Hoppe. He had a grand slam about a week or two ago. He's been doing a nice job. Give you about a north of 300 on base, 5 home runs. Nolan Schunal has been able to give you about a 350 on base. So, I mean, the Angels, who were 28th in the big leagues in terms of runs per game last season, they've had a nice reversal there. Kenley Jansen is a pretty rock-solid closer, and typically you have a good setup man, and Ben Joyce, he's currently on the injured list, but Reed Detmers has been able to give you some good swings and misses coming out of that bullpen. Brock Burke, after a good year last year with the team prior to that, he was struggling with the Rangers. It's been a little bit more testy there, but Ryan Zephyrian has done a nice job being able to hold on the fort end for Jose Soriano. Since the beginning of the 2024 season, he's only giving up about a half a home run per 9 innings. Soriano is not going to blow you away with like a whole bunch of strikeouts or anything like that. That said, he has been able to do a nice job of just being able to keep things out in front of him in terms of soft contact, as he's getting about 7 strikeouts to 3.5 walks per 9 innings this season, 3.16 ERA, 3.66 fielding dependent. I do think that the Angels get to Bailey Falter in this spot. I do think that they get the job done by multiple runs, so I'm going to be looking at that run line of the LA Angels. I would need at least +115 to be able to take a shot on that. And with regards to the total, I did set mine at 8.3. Do think they get a good start out of Soriano, and the Pirates just not doing their part on offense. So looking at the under, and I'm going to be looking at the Angels run line, and we're going to have things up with 929, 930 on the betting board. The Tampa Bay Rays hit the road. They're facing off against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Brandon Pfaadt hopes to battle for Arizona, and you've got Mr. Zach Little hoping to come up big for the Rays. 9 is the total. The under is -120, and the over is even. On the side, you've got the Arizona Diamondbacks between -150 to -155 favorites. +130 to +136 is that number on the Tampa Bay Rays. Set the Diamondbacks money line at a -156 if you're looking to lay a run half. Find that right around about a +125. If we get up to a +130, we'll be looking at the run line. I did set mine at a +128, so as of right now, I'd be looking at more of a chalkier money line, as I did set mine on the Diamondbacks at a -156. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, this has actually been a pretty impressive offense thus far this season. As Jonathan Aranda is hitting north of 350, and he's been able to give you 4+ home runs this season. Junior Caminero, he's been able to give you 5+ bombs as well, but let's call it what it is. This is still a team that's always going to be headlining in terms of that bullpen, the way that they utilize so many different guys and just be able to get them all functioning and firing all cylinders is impressive. You've had quite a few guys be able to step up this season, like an Eric Orize, hopefully I said that correct, along with Mason Montgomery, Garrett Clevenger, even Mason Englert. All these guys, everybody will give you a sub 340 ERA. Hunter Biggie is a guy that I do think has a little bit of upside. And then with regards to the lineup itself, Brandon Lau has been a little bit hit or miss, but he's been able to supply this team with 4+ home runs this season. Additionally, he's been able to get some really good production out of Jake Mangum, who's hitting above a 300. Last year, Christopher Morel couldn't get on base to save his life. Power numbers are a little bit down, but he's doing a good job of being able to move the line for the team. And on the flip side for the Arizona Diamondbacks, this is a bullpen that is going to be dealing with AJ Puck being on the injured list. That's a big blow for them. They still do have some relatively solid relievers. Shelby Miller has been able to do a nice job over the last few seasons after he just turned out to be a failure of a starter, but JP Fireeisen is an upside guy that they had into the bullpen and a former Tampa Bay Ray. And former Tampa Bay Ray Jalen Beeks has been really good in a long role as well. I do think that you're also going to get some good production out of the likes of Ryan Thompson and also Justin Martinez. And that all pairs so well with what you're able to get out of this lineup, which since the beginning of the 2024 campaign, number one in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. And they've done much of this with Corbin Carroll being banged up during the 2024 season. He was just not himself. I'm still fully convinced that that guy was playing injured last season because what we've seen out of him this season has been nothing short of tremendous. Give you a 395 on base, 7 home runs. This is a Corbin Carroll that we all know and love. And Eugenio Suarez is giving you absolutely nothing in terms of getting on base, but 112 hits, 6 of them have flown over the fence, so that's been good. Lourdes Gurriel, Josh Naylor, they both have been able to supply 4 home runs. Again, with Gurriel, you need to get a little bit more in terms of the average, but Naylor, he's been hitting a 333 for the team. Geraldo Perdomo has been good at being able to move the line as well. And then for Brandon Pfaadt, he, over the first few seasons of his career, I believe had been one of the most unlucky pitchers in all baseball. And now he's finally starting to get the results that he deserves. He has been posting up a 3.04 ERA through his first 4 starts of the season. His fielding independent is right around about a 5. So something that you do want to take caution of. Typically, he's hovering more around 9 strikeouts per 9 innings thus far this season. In the small sample size, more around about 7 strikeouts per 9, but he still doesn't walk a lot of guys. He's only giving up about 2 walks per 9 innings. I think that he does a solid job of taking it to a Tampa Bay Rays team that has been pretty solid with their bats thus far this season. I think that there might be a little bit of regression here. And with Zach Little, he has been a very intriguing starter, to say the least, because he just doesn't put anyone on base very cheaply. He's issuing 2.3 walks per 9 innings thus far this season, which is actually higher than what it's been with the Tampa Bay Rays, but he gives up a lot of hard contact. Through his first 4 starts of the season, he's already given up 6 home runs through 23 innings. And I do think that the Diamondbacks going to get to him relatively good. I did set my money line price at a -156. Again, would like to see this stick up by a few more pennies to be able to take a look at the run line, and hopefully when it's all said and done, I'm able to get there, but I did set my total at 8.9. Do think that the Rays lineup is in for a little bit of regression here, and that Rays bullpen is still relatively rock solid, so like that 9 under, and I do like the Diamondbacks as of right now on the money line, and that'll wrap things up for the Tuesday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Justin Perri, who does great work over at Chocolate Bets along Pitcher List, for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, whatever you for this podcast, you'll find out 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, name does not matter. So, per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. And giving that to you guys every single day throughout the baseball season on this podcast. So, I'll be back to you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.